Story 1. Certain people's voices and the way they sound can irritate me greatly. Story 2. He was from Italy, and I live in Eastern Canada. We completed the last 4 years of school together. We started talking a few years after we both graduated, and all he could talk about was his Italian heritage, not in an interesting way. For example, I would ask him what's up, and he would say, "Making pasta, you know why?" The answer was because he's Italian, but this happened every single day. So, I guess he was just too Italian for me. Story 3. I went on a breakfast date with a man one time. He spread ketchup across his entire plate and then chopped all the food into one big pile. Pancakes were involved. In that moment, I knew I could never see him again. Story 4. I once received a topless picture from a man I dated at the time. Below the picture, he wrote, "This is called pure strength and force, kitty. I don't know what is worse." The way he flexed his muscles, which was very cringeworthy, the message he sent, or the fact that he called me kitty. It is even worse in my first language. Story 5. Oh God, my time to shine. I was dating this sweet boy, and he said, "I do an amazing Beavis impression from Beavis and Butthead." And he was right, he did. He was so spot on that I realized he looked just like Beavis, blonde, kind of squinted eyes, a little overbite. After that, I was done. I felt guilty about it and told him it was my grandmother's fault. Edit. Since this has gotten a lot more traction than I thought, if you're about 50 years old and this sounds familiar, just know that I am very sorry. Story 6. Not me, but the pettiest thing I have seen people do is refuse to date someone with an Android when they use an iPhone. They see the green text and it immediately becomes an issue for them. That is about as petty as you can get. Story 7. I asked them how they were doing and they said blessed. Story 8. If I receive this, "Hey baby, what's good? Are you trying to hang out tonight?" I am no longer interested and will not reply. Story 9. I have not dated in 22 years, but after my mother's divorce, she once turned down a second date with a man because he did not order appetizers on their first date. Update. I feel a little guilty now, as if I threw my mom under the bus. I do not think it had anything to do with money. She was raised in the 1950s and 1960s, and I believe she was too shy and traditional to ask for her own appetizers, but she felt it would have been polite for him to offer. It is definitely petty, and we make fun of her, but she laughs at herself about it now. I see how it could make her sound like a princess. Story 10. I will not date them if they do not use their turn signals. If you cannot communicate on the road, you cannot communicate in real life. Story 11. I dated a really cute lady in my early 20s, pretty much my type, super sweet, but she did this weird exhale or scoff thing consistently in conversation when she did not like something. It became so noticeable I was going to lose my mind. I finally was just like, yeah, this is not going to work. It was kind of a rude move on my part, but it was too much. Story 12. He scolded his dog for doing normal dog activities. Instant turn off. Story 13. This was years ago, but I would swipe left on any man holding an iPhone without a case on it because I did not need that kind of stress in my life. Story 14. When I was dating, I hated loud talkers. The world does not need to know about your ingrown toenail, James. Story 15. If someone has unattractive feet, I am not usually interested in feet. However, if their toes appear as if they are trying to communicate using sign language, I find it difficult to accept. Story 16. I went on a first date with a guy to a coffee shop. I arrived before him and was sitting at a table waiting. He walked up and, instead of approaching quietly and asking, "Excuse me, are you my name?" he loudly yelled, "My name?" Everyone around turned and looked at him while I quietly walked away. It was over then and there. I think he thought he was being confident and dominant, but I am a private and introverted person, and that made me very uncomfortable. Story 17. Someone who takes forever to get ready to go anywhere. I once dated a girl, and it took her 40 minutes to get ready to walk the dog for 15 minutes with me. This was not due to a phobia, and she did not wear any makeup or anything special that might explain the slow pace. She basically talked my ears off and spent an eternity tying her shoelaces. It even left me with a small existential crisis, wondering if I would be cut out for children. But choosing a life like this with an adult, I have way too little patience for that. Story 18. I swipe left on every duck face photo. Also, Instagram cat filters. Story 19. A girl named Geraldine asked me out. I declined. My name is Thomas. Story 20. Does not smell right. I do not mean a lack of hygiene, just if I do not like their natural scent, it is not going to work long term. I am not sure this is actually petty, though. Gets mad when driving. Adult emotional regulation is a must, and I do not want to be the spectator of someone's temper. Story 21. 17 years ago, this man was interested in me. He was attractive, but I was young and I hated his surfer necklace. I kept turning him down because of that necklace. We have now been together for 16 years, married for 12 with 3 children. Rest in peace to the necklace. It did not survive. Story 22. Drawn on eyebrows that make someone look like a surprised cartoon character. Story 23. How people conduct themselves at the store when they have issues or on the road matters. There is nothing more concerning than someone who has a meltdown capable of causing physical harm or death over a trivial inconvenience. Story 24. Sports fans. Not people who participate, just those who watch sports and base their entire identity on it. The same applies to gym enthusiasts. Story 25. If they have too much of a social media presence, there is no need to let everyone you might have crossed paths with know your business every day. Story 26. When they are glued to their phone all the time, I am aware we are in the age of smartphones, but if they cannot live fully in the moment once in a while or are on their phone every time we are having a conversation, it turns me away. Story 27. Height. I am 6 feet 4 inches tall. Short girls are awkward to be with when there is that much of a height difference. My wife concealed her shortness with heels for several dates until we went bowling. I already liked her, so she won that one. Story 28. If they cannot eat without making sounds, I really hate that. Story 29. I dated a man who sounded like Hank Hill making that BWHH sound when he climaxed. Immediate discomfort. Story 30. They like me back. I mean, how messed up are you if I am your choice? Story 31. Bad drivers. Crawling in the passing lane. Oblivious to everyone passing on the right and the dirty looks. The driver could not take his eyes off the road for a second without drifting into another lane. Sober. No second date. I do not think this qualifies as petty reasons, though. Story 32. If they always put sugar on top of certain fruits, it is nature's candy, just eat it. Story 33. Does not say please or thank you to servers or anyone in a customer service role. I feel the need to say please and thanks on their behalf, and that is a job I cannot take on for life. Story 34. If he has a weak chin, I just cannot do it. It is about as petty as it gets. Story 35. Allergies. I love animals, and I am not going to date a man who might die if, God forbid, I kiss him after eating a peanut or shrimp. Story 36. When she uses the word infer when she obviously means imply, I know some men would tolerate that, but frankly, I cannot imagine why. Story 37. He wore sandals. His second toe was longer than the big toe. It hung over the end of the sandal. I could not handle it. I would just stare at it. Story 38. I once had a girl interested in me. She was very attractive, with an athletic body and all that charm. The problem was, she had the exact same name as my best friend. A guy. I couldn't do it. Story 39. Some comments made me laugh in agreement. Some comments made me introspective and sad. Story 40. I went on a first date with a girl. She was very attractive, funny, and we had a lot of laughs and great conversation over dinner. I was driving her back to her place, and she started singing along with the radio. She was so tone-deaf that it was like listening to fingernails on a chalkboard. I never asked for a second date. Story 41. Consistent misuse of to. There they are. You are your. Story 42. Not sure if this is petty, but if you dislike animals, that is an immediate red flag. I do not care if you look like Megan Fox. Story 43. If a man has a large truck but does not really need one, it is a no for me. If he needs one for work purposes or has to haul something, that is acceptable. Story 44. Still not over this. Absolutely loved this girl with the same name as my mom. I just don't think I can do it. Story 45. Her vocal tone was very cutesy, if that makes sense. It was as if she was always talking to babies or puppies. I remember thinking, I will never live it down if anyone I know meets this person. Story 46. His footwear or lack thereof. I despise Crocs and men wearing sandals. Story 47. Loud eating. One lip smack and I'm out. I know I will never be able to deal with it. Same with snoring. Both of my parents snore like crazy. They sound like they're starting a mower. I'm not a violent person, but I've thrown a couple of pillows out of sleep deprivation. One time I was so into a guy, and he clapped at the end of a movie. I was definitely less attracted to him. I felt pressured to clap with him, and I was so embarrassed. I just remembered it was a Marvel movie as well. Also, guys who put pictures of their cars in their dating profiles, people who don't put the shopping cart back, or return clothes when shopping, and those who stay past closing time at restaurants or stores are frustrating. Story 48. He talks a lot. I am an introvert. He is not. He is good-looking, amazing at his job, highly intelligent, and funny. He is also a prankster who loves to play pranks on me. He can get annoying, but I enjoy his childlike enthusiasm. He is also an all-around good guy. He loves to take care of the people he cares about. For the most part, he is a great conversationalist. However, when he starts talking, there is no off button. Story 49. If someone hunts for sport, especially if they have a photo of themselves holding up a dead deer, it is very disturbing. Story 50. I know this sounds shallow, but I will not date a smoker. I do not care how attractive she is. Story 51. For many years when I was younger, I completely refused to date any man who was divorced or did not have a car. A few years later, I not only dated a man without a car but who was divorced, and then married him for almost 40 years. Story 52. Spitters. Spitting, unless you are running a marathon, totally grosses me out. Do not get me started on hawking loogies followed by spitting. Story 53. I'm not sure if it's petty, but she slept with a man at my work when he first arrived. The man was slightly above a caveman in intelligence and couldn't finish a sentence without using offensive language. She was constantly asking me to hang out and get to know each other. By the end of it, she just started asking if we could be intimate. Couldn't, and I was honest about it too. I didn't want to go where the man was. Story 54. My ex smacked her lips when she ate and chewed with her mouth open. I dropped many hints and even said, someone at my work was smacking their lips and eating with their mouth open, and I felt like throwing up. Nothing changed except our relationship status. Story 55. Sports gatekeepers are the ones who think you are not a true fan if you do not know the blood type of the third backup quarterback. Story 56. I am very interested in sports. I admire those who cannot sit still for more than 20 minutes and who eat a small portion of chicken every week with rice and broccoli only. I am not saying sports are bad. On the contrary, I appreciate them. However, being a health enthusiast and always having too much energy is not for me. I also prefer men who have lived independently, away from family. I want a man who can take care of himself and not just replace his mother with a girlfriend who continues to take care of him. Story 57. Getting around in a noisy vehicle, I assume the selfishness will spread into other areas. Story 58. When they snap to get your attention to obtain what they want. My father does it, and it drives me nuts. Story 59. She said laugh out loud in real life. No girl, you can laugh out loud right off. Story 60. I am in my 40s. Female. If a man gets the majority of his information from podcasts, he might say, I heard of neckbeards, small chin goatees like those from the 90s, sideburns, any peacocking type of hairstyle, people who look like Chris Angel. Story 61. Perfect girl. Beautiful, smart, charming, but she would mark her place in books by ripping off the corner of the page she was currently on to use as a bookmark. I could not live that way. Story 62. Someone being really into any sports team, Mainly because I do not give **** about sports and I would be bored every time. Story 63. He sighed too much and too dramatically on our first and only date. Story 64. If they come on too strong, I prefer men who are a bit shy and try to get to know me as a friend first. It makes me feel really uncomfortable when men I do not know try to flirt with me. Please calm down. Story 65. When they do not want to eat vegetables, I am a big fan of greens. As much as possible, I eat green leafy vegetables every day. Story 66. They say females when referring to women. It is the deal breaker for me. Story 67. My friend, a food enthusiast, broke up with a girl because she was allergic to garlic, which completely confused him. The thought of garlic-free meals for life troubled him. He tried to give her another chance when she offered to cook with him at her place and prove they could prepare a good meal without garlic. He went to the freezer to retrieve some frozen chicken and found her recently deceased cat stored there. She was waiting to deliver it for cremation. Story 68. They wear animal print clothes. I do not care if it is real or fake. I hate it. Story 69. A girl on Tinder said, "If you haven't been to college, don't bother." I just swiped her away but now regret not making fun of her instead. Story 70. I briefly got back with a toxic ex somehow. I could handle the toxicity better than the beard he started growing during the Civil War. Story 71. She had sleep apnea and would not treat it. She was very attractive and kind, and although there were other, more serious issues I could overlook, I simply could not stay with someone I could not sleep near. I do not mind snoring. The almost shouted snorts and gasps resembling a heart attack victim's agonal breaths were unbearable. This was not the main reason for the breakup, but it was one of the final factors. Story 72. Back when I was single, I started talking to a man on a dating app. He was extremely attractive, clever, funny, and we had so much in common. There was an immediate connection. However, he made podcasts. They were always at least an hour long, and they were the most boring, dry, and painful things to listen to. He produced one every couple of days and always expected me to listen to them immediately, then wanted to talk about them for hours. After a couple of weeks of this, I stopped talking to him. I absolutely could not spend hours a day on these podcasts. After that, I found myself immediately turned off any time a man told me he had a podcast. Story 73. Honestly, and I know this is petty, but bad grammar drives me up a wall. Saying things like, "I borrowed it to them," instead of, "I loaned it to them," or doing something on accident instead of by accident, or using words like irregardless or disoriented. I am cringing right now just from typing these things. Story 74. Mouth breathers cannot stand people who walk around with their mouths open. I know some people cannot physically breathe through their nose, but I find it unattractive. Story 75. Had an ex who was 32 when we started dating 5 years ago. She had only ever lived with family, never learned to drive, had no adult skills, and talked like a baby. I did not know all that before I let her move in. Getting her out took a very long time. From now on, I have a checklist. Story 76. She ate her peas one at a time, but she scooped the corn niblets. It was very vexing. Story 77. If a man wears tight shirts, especially turtlenecks, no matter his physique, it totally turns me off. Female, 40s, married 20 years, not looking to date, but if I were, that would be a deal breaker. Story 78. If they do not know how to drive, it makes things really inconvenient, and I do not want to be the one doing all the driving. I do not think it is that petty, but I have been told it is. Story 79. 1. Being obnoxious or rude to others for no reason. 2. Bad texting grammar or just saying, "Hey," immediately makes me never respond again. Story 80. So I know I am about to get my ass handed to me, but to hell with it. There is absolutely no way that I could date a supporter of Donald Trump, or anyone in the Make America Great Again QAnon or they control the weather movement. I could date a level-headed Republican, I am pretty sure, but the other stuff is absolutely non-negotiable. Before 2015, I never cared about political affiliation. Today, though, completely different ball game. Story 81. I will not date a man with a food allergy because I want to be able to eat anything and share food. Peanut allergy? I do not need that stress in my life. Story 82. Terrible grammar. Does not know the difference between you are or your or here versus here. Story 83. This is shallow of me, but when a man has small hands, it literally nauseates me. Feels like a phobia or something similar. I really hate it. Story 84. Religion. I have been with 2 Christian girls throughout my lifetime, and both ended the relationship in the most hurtful way imaginable. I think it has to do with the fact that they believe they can pray it off later. I have been heartbroken many times, but these girls caused the most damage for sure. Story 85. I refuse to go out with anyone who would settle for me. Story 86. Has a single gold chain. I have no idea why. I cannot get past it. Story 87. I had a boyfriend who had many genuine red flags I let slide, but I could not get past it when he told me his favorite color was purple. I hate purple, and it felt like a metaphor for the entire relationship. Story 88. If he put a reindeer nose on the hood of his car during the holidays. Story 89. I find most people boring and shallow. There is a lot to consider. Story 90. Both my ex-husbands had the same first name. After the second divorce, I swore never to date a man with that name again. Story 91. Men who wear low-rise baggy jeans that show their underwear. It is a deal breaker. Story 92. I'm realizing the loneliness epidemic is completely self-inflicted. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.